There are moments in life when something deep inside you whispers, Don't open that door. Don't make that call. Don't look at that name on the screen. And most of the time, if you're honest with yourself, you already know what it means. Something in you knows before your mind catches up, before your hands even move. That night I felt it. That quiet, almost invisible warning. That pull to just leave it alone. But I opened the message anyway, and nothing has been the same since. It was a Tuesday. I remember that clearly, even now. Not because something extraordinary happened that day. It was the complete opposite. One of those days that leaves no trace. I drove to work on autopilot. I ate lunch at my desk without tasting any of it. And when I finally came home, I did what I always did. I kicked off my shoes at the door, turned on the lamp in the corner, and sank into the couch with my phone in my hand. The apartment was quiet. The particular kind of quiet that used to feel lonely, but that I had learned, slowly and with effort, to call peace. And that's the thing I want you to understand. That quiet hadn't always been there. I had built it, deliberately, brick by brick, choice by choice, over 3 very long years. 3 years since I had closed a chapter of my life that had nearly broken me. 3 years since I had walked away from someone I had trusted with parts of myself I'd never shown anyone else. What I can tell you is that the kind of pain they caused me wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the quiet, seeping kind. The kind that gets into the foundation of who you are and makes you question things you never thought you'd question. Your judgment, your worth, your ability to trust your own heart. I had spent a year barely functioning, another year in therapy, pulling myself back together with both hands, and a 3rd year actually living again, breathing without it feeling like effort. I had done the work. I want you to know that. I had earned the quiet, and on that Tuesday, sitting on my couch with the city humming outside, I genuinely believed I was okay. Then my phone lit up, and there it was, a name I hadn't seen in 3 years. I remember the exact sensation. It started somewhere in my stomach. Not pain exactly, more like a sudden drop, like the floor shifting beneath you. My body recognized that name before my brain even processed it. My shoulders pulled in. My breath changed. 3 years of careful, intentional healing, and my nervous system reacted like no time had passed at all. I stared at the notification, long enough that the screen went dark again, and I put the phone face down on the cushion next to me. I told myself I wasn't going to read it. I actually said it out loud, quietly, to no one, like a promise I was making to the version of me who had fought so hard to get here. I got up and made tea. I stood at the stove and thought about everything I had learned about protecting your peace, about how some doors are closed for very good reasons, and opening them, even slightly, can let in things you spent years learning to keep out. I poured the tea. I washed the dishes. I stood at the window and looked at the street below, the yellow wash of streetlights on wet pavement, a couple walking a dog, a delivery truck idling at the corner. Ordinary, unremarkable, grounding things. I went back to the couch. I picked up the phone, and I read the message. It wasn't what I expected, which, in hindsight, might have been exactly what made it so difficult to dismiss. It said, I know I don't have the right to reach out, I know that. But something keeps pulling me to do this, and I haven't been able to make it stop. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, truly, for all of it. I don't expect anything, not forgiveness, not a response. I needed to say it out loud to you. I hope you're okay, I really do. That was all. I read it once, then again. Then I set the phone down on my chest and stared at the ceiling for a very long time. The thing about a message like that is, it doesn't give you anything to fight. If it had been accusatory, defensive, manipulative, I would have known exactly what to do. I had rehearsed this. I knew my lines. I had prepared for the version of this moment where I needed to be strong. But this wasn't that. The anger came first, quick and familiar, and almost like relief, because anger I knew how to use. Anger had been the wall between me and everything that could undo me. When I felt it rise, part of me was grateful, because anger means you don't have to feel the other things, but the other things came anyway. Underneath the anger, there was grief, not for the relationship. I had grieved that already. But grief for a younger version of me. The one who had given so much and asked so little. The one who had believed so fully and been so wrong. And underneath even that, something smaller and more fragile. Something I almost didn't let myself name. A question. What if they meant it? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark, turning the message over in my mind like a stone you hold in your hand, trying to figure out the weight of it. I thought about every reason it might be manipulation, every angle from which it could be a trap. But I also thought about something my therapist had said once, about how we sometimes confuse protecting ourselves with punishing other people. How the wall we build for safety can, over time, become something else. A prison that looks like a fortress. I didn't want to believe that applied here, but I couldn't entirely dismiss it either. By morning, I had decided. I was going to ignore the message, delete it, move on. Return to the quiet Tuesday version of my life as if nothing had interrupted it. So I did nothing. For 3 days. And for 3 days, the message sat inside me like a splinter I couldn't locate. Not painful enough to be unbearable, but present in a way that wouldn't let me forget it. I'd lose the thread of conversations at work. I'd find myself standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing. I'd wake at 3 a.m. for reasons I couldn't explain. On the 3rd day, I was in a coffee shop waiting for a friend. I had my journal open, pretending to write. Really, I was just sitting there with that familiar weight in my chest. The woman at the table beside me was reading a book. I wasn't paying attention to her at all until she shifted in her seat, and for just 1 second I caught the cover. The title was The Book of Forgiving. I don't know how to explain what happened in that moment. I'm not someone who sees signs in everything. I've always been a little skeptical of that kind of thinking. But something moved through me when I saw those words. Something quiet and certain and completely uninvited. Not a voice. Not a vision. Just a shift. The way a room changes when a cloud passes and the light comes back. I picked up my phone and looked at the message again. I called my therapist that afternoon. I told her everything. The message, the silence, the coffee shop. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "What would it actually cost you to respond?" I said I was afraid. Afraid that any opening would start a landslide. That I would lose the ground I had worked so hard to claim. That I would somehow go back to being the person I was before I understood what I was worth. She let me sit with all of that. And then she said something that has lived in me ever since. She said, "Forgiveness isn't a door you open for someone else. It's a cage you unlock for yourself." I held those words the whole drive home. Here is what I had always believed about forgiveness, without ever examining it clearly. I thought it was surrender. Like if I forgave someone, I was agreeing with what they did, erasing the harm. And I wasn't willing to betray what I had been through by softening it. But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness isn't amnesia. It isn't reconciliation. It isn't even a feeling, not at first. It's a decision to stop spending your own energy maintaining the walls you built to keep someone out. It's understanding that the story you keep telling about how you were wronged, even when that story is entirely true, can become a cage over time. The anger wasn't protecting me anymore. I had mistaken it for armor, but it had become weight. Still, knowing something and being ready to do something about it are two very different things. There was a part of me that had held onto this wound for so long I wasn't entirely sure who I was without it. Sometimes our pain becomes so familiar that the idea of laying it down feels less like freedom and more like loss. That night, I turned everything off. No music, no TV, no podcast to fill the silence. I just sat in the quiet of my apartment and let it be what it was. And I talked to God, not the polished kind of prayer, the kind that comes out broken and incomplete and keeps circling back to the same places. The kind where you start 3 sentences and don't finish any of them. I said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. I don't know if responding is wisdom or weakness. I don't know if what I felt in that coffee shop meant anything or if I just wanted to mean something. I stopped. I started again. I don't know if I trust them. I don't know what forgiveness is supposed to feel like from the inside. I don't know if I'll do it right. A long pause. And then something came out of me that I hadn't planned. Something that had been waiting underneath everything else, beneath all the analysis and the careful reasoning and the protective anger. Waiting for a moment of quiet to finally surface. I said, I don't want to carry this anymore. And I meant it. Not as a performance or an aspiration, just the plain, tired, honest truth. I had been carrying it for so long I had stopped noticing how heavy it was. And in that moment, in that quiet, I finally noticed. Something happened after that. I won't dress it up. What I can tell you is that something tight and knotted inside my chest began, not to disappear, but to soften, just enough to breathe a little differently. I don't know what to call that. I only know what it felt like. The next morning I woke up, and the first thing I felt was not dread. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table in the early gray light, opened the message one more time, and read it the way you read something when you're finally ready. Not bracing, not defending, just reading. And I wrote back. I rewrote it 4 times. The first version was too long, too defensive. The second was too cold. The third I deleted because I realized I was writing it for them instead of for me. The 4th version was this. I got your message. I've spent some time with it. I'm not sure what, if anything, comes after this. But I want you to know that I heard you, and I'm choosing to set down what happened between us. Not for you, for me. I read it once more. My hand hovered. I pressed send. I sat still for a moment afterward. My heart was beating a little faster. My hands weren't completely steady. But underneath all of that, something was there. Something I hadn't felt in connection with this person in 3 years. Quiet. Not the fragile kind I had built and carefully maintained. Something deeper. Something that felt harder to disturb. They didn't respond for 3 days. Then a short message came through. It just said, "Thank you. I mean that." 4 words, and somehow they were exactly the right size. Nothing that required me to do anything more. Just 4 words that closed something that had been open for a very long time. Forgiveness doesn't erase the wound. I want to be honest about that. I still had hard days. Memories still surfaced. The ache was still real sometimes. None of that disappeared. But the anger, that low, constant hum of resentment I had lived with so long I'd stopped hearing it, began, gradually, and then unmistakably, to quiet. And in the space where it had been, something grew. Room. Just room. A kind of interior spaciousness I hadn't known I was missing. I started sleeping more deeply, laughing more easily. I was more present, less guarded, less preoccupied with managing invisible walls. I hadn't understood until it started to lift how much energy I'd been spending just to hold on. I think about that Tuesday often. About how close I came to deleting the message without reading it. About the woman in the coffee shop who will never know that the book she was reading quietly on an ordinary afternoon became, for just 1 second, part of a story much larger than either of us. There are moments in a life that don't look like turning points while they're happening. They look like Tuesdays, like notifications you almost ignore, like a cup of tea you make to avoid a decision. like a prayer that feels like it's going nowhere because you can't even finish a sentence. But something moves through those moments. Something that doesn't announce itself. Something that doesn't ask for your permission or your readiness. It simply arrives. And it waits. And when you finally get quiet enough, when you're finally honest enough to say the true thing underneath all the careful, armored, self-protecting things, it's still there. Still waiting. I'm not telling you what to do with whatever you're holding. Some wounds need more time. Some doors genuinely should stay closed. I don't know your story. I only know mine. What I know is this. The thing I was most terrified to release was the very thing keeping me from the rest of my life. The anger I had mistaken for strength was quietly, every single day, costing me something I couldn't afford to keep spending. And the night I sat in the quiet and said, out loud to no one and to everything at the same time, I don't want to carry this anymore. Something heard me. So if you're carrying something tonight, if there's a name that sits in the back of your mind even when you're not thinking about it, if there's something tight in your chest that's been there so long you've started to believe it's just who you are, maybe ask yourself the question I was finally ready to ask. Not what do they deserve, not whether it's fair, just this. What would it feel like to put this down? Not for them, for you.